Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Operation Freedom Health series of presentations hosted by Dr. Glidden, one of the top naturopathic physicians in the country, if not the world, and myself, Dr. Dave Janda, an allopathic doctor, an MD. We've stated this before, but it bears repeating. The syndicate loves to divide and conquer. They do not want, and by the way, their wants have actually turned into fruition in a sense that this is the only platform where an ND, naturopathic doctor, and an MD, an allopathic medical doctor, actually present information for your benefit to empower you. You look around. Anywhere in the world, you will not find another series of presentations like the ones that Dr. Glidden and I have done over the past several years. And the reason is because they all want everybody divided. Because if people are divided, you don't get the information to empower you. And that's what this is about. Today, Dr. Glidden and I are going to focus on blood and heart health, and in the process, discuss the issue of strokes. And the reason we're discussing the issue of strokes is because it ties in, it meshes with blood and heart health, number one. And number two, there has been a preponderance of stroke diagnoses that have come to the forefront in escalating numbers over the past year and a half. And it would be inappropriate for Peter and I not to address the issue of strokes. Now, a little background on Peter. He, as I mentioned, he's one of the top naturopathic physicians in our country, if not the world. He's a phenomenal researcher, phenomenal clinician, and a phenomenal author. His two books should be the foundation of your medical library. They are at my home. Everybody is sick, and I know why. An Attempt to Cure with Holistic Medicine, available on his website, drglidden, Glidden.com, as well as Amazon.com. And of course, there are links at OperationFreedomHealth.com. It is my honor to welcome back Dr. Glidden. Pete, welcome back to the Operation Freedom Health and Wellness series and platform.
Dave, thanks so much. You know, your introductory remarks, I've never really thought about our relationship like that because, you know, we're so deep into it and it's just normal for me. Mm-hmm. But you're right. This is the only place in the world, where people from both sides of the medical aisle get together and talk about what's best for humanity. It's the only place that this is happening. And so thank you for that. None of this would happen without you, quite frankly.
Well, and right back at you. So Pete, let's get right to it. Blood and heart health and their interrelationship with strokes.
Well, like the fella said, you don't get so there's two types of stroke,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Stroke is when there's a funky blood supply thing going on in your brain. So there's two types. One is called a hemorrhagic stroke, where a blood vessel in your brain bursts, and the tissues that are immediately around the little burst, and these are really small blood vessels mm-hmm. that this happens to, by the way, mm-hmm. those brain tissues die in minutes because the blood supply is gone. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if somebody held a bag over your mouth and you weren't able to breathe, only in a matter of minutes, you'd be dead. Well, the same thing happens to the cells in your brain if they don't get enough oxygen, if the blood supply is interrupted. So that's a hemorrhagic stroke. Another type of stroke is when you get a little blood clot. Mm-hmm. A little eeny teeny blood clot travels around the body, gets up into the brain, goes through the blood vessels. It goes through a bigger blood vessel, then a smaller blood vessel, and a smaller until it gets stuck because the clot is too big than the vessel that it's in, and then everything downstream from the clot dies because there's no blood flow, right? It's like a dam in a river.
And that's called an ischemic stroke.
Ischemic stroke, yep.
Or an occlusive stroke. One of the, some people say occlusive.
Yeah, so why do these things happen? Because you have blood vessels? Because you have blood? No. These things happen. There are a lot of things that can lead to the cause of either hemorrhagic or a thrombotic stroke. But the first things to consider is, number one, not enough nutrients in the body to keep the blood healthy so that it only will clot appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, not enough nutrients in the body to keep the walls of the blood vessels healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the walls of your blood vessel are unhealthy, they're going to burst under certain types of adverse stress. And the third thing to talk about is adverse stress.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like the fella said, Occam's razor, the simplest solution is often the one that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that's been happening to everybody in the world lately? What's the common denominator, that stress that has happened to all of these people who are now reporting with stroke? Either a stroke because of a blood clot traveled from their lung up into their brain, an ischemic stroke, or a hemorrhagic stroke where just the blood vessel in their brain just popped. What's the one common denominator between the increased incidence of these strokes and people? What is it, Dave?
It's the environment that has been created due to a pathogen, let's call it. And the not just the physical pathogen, but the psychological ramifications induced by the power brokers creating an environment to induce a stressful, beyond stressful situation for people.
You know, I was at a conference in May, a naturopathic medical conference in Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale or someplace like that, Arizona. And there was a really interesting presentation. And the cliff notes are that if you didn't know what the stress was, if it's a psychological stress, mental, emotional stress, or a physical stress,
mm-hmm.
you were just looking at the blood
mm-hmm.
and how the body responded to the stress, you wouldn't know what the nature of the stress was, because the body responds to all of these stresses in more or less the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So psychological stress is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
It doesn't just happen to people with weak wills
No.
or weak minds. It's as real of a thing as
Right.
lifting too many weights and then your tendons pop.
Right.
It's a real thing.
Right.
And everybody needs to understand this. And, you know, for the last 3 years now, there's been so much psychological stress administered
mm-hmm.
to the world at large. That's a giant factor. The other factor, of course,
mm-hmm.
it's a known side effect.
Mm-hmm.
Hemorrhagic stroke and thrombotic stroke, I mean, known side effects
Mm-hmm.
of these medical treatments. So, you know, if it looks like a duck and flies like a duck and quacks like a duck, well, it's probably a duck.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty sure we know what these stressors are,
Mm-hmm.
which then begs the question, well, what are you going to do to deal with it?
Yeah, because there are many people, Pete, many people that have MD after their name that will say, well, there's nothing you can do to really enhance your blood and heart health.
Yeah.
Right? It is what it is. No. You have taught me over many years' time. You name the organ system. Our bodies are lean, mean, fighting machines.
That's
for
right,
health,
Dave.
for health.
Yep.
And there are things you can do from a nutrition standpoint to optimize your lean, mean, fighting machine of a body.
Yeah, 100% correct. And this is the biggest secret in the 21st century of medicine, that your body knows how to fix itself. Your body wants to fix itself. Your body is trying to optimize its structure and function all of the time. But body needs help, right? You got to eat food. You got to drink water. You got to breathe air. You got to put warm clothing on when you're in harsh environmental conditions. You got to deal with life. Well, one of the things that you're not told you need to do, which is mandatory, is you need to provide your body with the essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids that it needs just to work. I mean, you got to put oil in your engine, your automobile engine. You got to put transmission fluid in. You got to put power steering fluid in. You got to put air in the tires. You got to put the right gas in the tank. I mean, everybody gets that, but nobody extrapolates that forward to the human body, and it's a really big deal here.
Mm-hmm.
That the body needs to be nutrified just to deal with the stress of life.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention extracurricular stress.
Right.
Like what we're insinuating here. So nutrition and the proper diet are really fundamentally essential. And this is why in our parlance, we refer to the 90 essential nutrients as the foundation pack, because it's the foundation of your health. And you need to do these things primarily. And if you're not going to do these things, then don't do anything else, because this is the first step. You need to do the first step. So the first step is the Healthy Foundation Pack. It's the 4 nutritional supplements that provide you, arguably for the first time in your life, all of the raw materials and absorbable recipes that your body needs. All of them. Not 50% of them. All of them. 100% of your body's nutrient needs, essential nutrient needs, are found in the Healthy Foundation Pack. So you feed your body that stuff. It's like giving Miracle Grow to a plant. No kidding. Number one. And then number two, depending on what the stress is that you are experiencing, there's other things that you can do to support that part of your body. Now, in this case, we're talking about strokes, right? We have to talk about blood vessel health, and we have to talk about blood viscosity health.
How thick it is, how soupy it is, how thin it is.
Yeah, your body needs to have your blood viscosity just in the Goldilocks zone. Can't be too thin. That's not good.
Too much, you bleed out. Too thick, you clot up.
That's it.
Yeah.
So now the body knows how to maintain this. Otherwise, we'd all be dead.
Right.
But there are nutrients that are necessary. So with blood viscosity,
it's thickness.
Omega-3 and omega-6 essential fatty acids are really fundamentally important.
And these are a part of the foundation pack.
100%. Okay. It's in the Projoba Omega fish oil, or the EFA Plus. If you're under 21 years of age, the recommendation is the EFA Plus. If you're over 21 years of age, the recommendation is the Projoba Omegas. And there are reasons behind that you can gain access to at Operation Freedom Health with the informational videos that we have there. So that's important. And this from the Department of Redundancy Department, right? You don't just need omega-3, in this case, essential fatty acids. You need omega-3 essential fatty acids plus the other 89 nutrients. Because it's a package deal. And this is where the magic in our method lies. Because most people who do medical nutrition clinically, they do something called fractionated nutrition, where they'll recommend large doses of vitamin D, or intravenous doses of vitamin C, or like that. Right. And we don't do that.
No.
Because that's not the holistic way, and the holistic way is the better way. Because it just makes sense to give the body everything that it needs, because there's so many metabolic interconnections there. I mean, the mind boggles at the metabolic pathways here that the body is handling automatically every day, all of the time. So we give the foundation pack, and then in this case, we give extra omega-3 essential fatty acids, or omega-3 and omega-6 if you're under 21 years of age. That's really easy breezy lemon squeezy. No real rocket science there. You just give the body more of the stuff that it needs to maintain healthy blood viscosity. And as far as blood vessel integrity goes, you need copper. Because here's a really interesting fun fact to know and tell. The body will spontaneously manufacture a protein called elastin. And hidden in the name is what elastin does. Elastin helps tissues of the body to maintain elasticity and flexibility. If the blood vessels are no longer elastic, they become brittle. And a brittle blood vessel is no bueno, because a brittle blood vessel will burst under hydrostatic pressure, blood pressure. You know, it's like a garden hose. If you got an old dried out garden hose, or you run over it 10 times, you know, with your automobile, the part of the hose that has become dried out or stressed by the weight of the automobile, you turn the water on and that part of the hose bubbles up. Well, when that happens in a blood vessel, it's called an aneurysm. And the end result of an aneurysm is that it not only bubbles up, but it bursts. Just because it's lost its structural integrity, because it doesn't have enough elastin. Why? Because you have a bad gene? No, because your body's run out of copper. So guess what's part of the 90 essential nutrients?
Copper.
Copper. And to give the body extra copper, if you're going to be around extracurricular stress that promotes these types of breakdowns, the supplement that's recommended is called Ultimate Selenium, because the Ultimate Selenium has the requisite amounts of extra copper in it. And this goes back to the holistic method. You don't just do extra copper, because if you do extra copper, it will cause a deficiency in selenium.
Right.
And interestingly enough, Linus Pauling, the guy that was the guru of vitamin C, and did a lot of really good work in that regard. But, you know, back in his day, they didn't even know, I don't even know if the word holistic had been coined in medicine yet. Nobody knew anything about it. Linus Pauling was the godfather of fractionated nutrition, and Linus Pauling was a textbook for copper deficiency.
With his white hair, flowing white hair, right?
Yep. I mean, that's another thing that your body needs in order to produce melanin, which is the pigment that keeps tissues, you know, dark, is copper.
Copper, yeah.
And Albert Einstein also died from an aortic aneurysm, which is a copper deficiency.
Oh, very interesting.
He was even worse than Linus Pauling was. I mean, he had saggy eyes. All of his face muscles were saggy. He had capillaries. You know, you could see the capillaries in his face. Guaranteed, he also had hemorrhoids down to his knees.
Whoa.
Because that's another manifestation of not enough elastin in your body, which is caused by a copper deficiency. But vitamin C will waste copper. So you don't just do fractionated nutrition, you do everything.
Right. Because if you don't, then you can lead to these other deficiencies when you're trying to help yourself on one side of the equation, which is the fall apart, if you will, of fractionation.
100%.
Heavy duty on one certain thing.
Yeah, and we're the only people talking about it, by the way.
That's true.
I mean, there's even very few people in my world who talk about holistic medical nutrition. Everybody knows about it, but not everybody is as focused on it and has done clinical work with it like I have, and it's a big deal. And you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. So, and it's just makes sense. I mean, this is all just street smarts, common sense. I mean, you don't just put air in the tires when you take the car in to get it tuned up. You do a lot of different things to it.
Right. No, right.
Well, you don't just do vitamin C when you're trying to help the body, or copper, or EFAs. Right. You give it everything, plus a little extra of this, a little extra of that, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. And this is why we get results. I mean, I had a lady just the other day. As part of the subscription service at drglidden.com, I have a feature called a live chat where it's live, and it's a Q&A session with my subscribers, and they're from all over the world, right? Where everybody's in a chat room, and I'm doing a live video presentation. I'm answering their questions. We had a woman just last week. She's been following my advice generically. There's no private appointment necessary. She just followed the information that was outlined at drglidden.com, and every once in a while she'd show up in the chat room and ask a question about this, that, or another thing. She has successfully weaned herself off of 25 prescription medications.
Wow.
And she's healthier than she's ever been. Her blood values are good. Everything's good. The only thing that she's still dealing with, and rightly so, because it's a really tough nut to crack, is insulin-dependent diabetes that she's had, I think, since she was a teenager. But 25 medications she's off of. Why? Because you don't get high blood pressure because you have an amlodipine deficiency. Or thank God for insulin.
Yeah.
Thank God for lidocaine.
Right.
Thank God for general anesthesia.
Right.
But you cannot drug yourself into a state of health. You can't do it. And the goal of naturopathic medicine is to get people so healthy that they don't need their drugs.
Right.
Sometimes we can do that, as in her case. Sometimes we get halfway there because, you know, people came too late to the party, whatever. But nonetheless, this is the goal. Why? Because it makes sense. And also because it's clinically possible. So you might as well give it the old college try and see how far back your body can bounce.
So blood and heart health, in summary, foundation pack, diet. Dr. Glidden has done a video that's on OperationFreedomHealth.com, free. Dr. Glidden has done it called The 12 Bad Foods. It's about the 12 bad foods that induce inflammation. Now, you might think that inflammation starts and stops with joints. As Pete mentioned earlier in this presentation, inflammation can be in blood vessels as well. Blood vessels that are inflamed are more prone to pop. Blood vessels that are inflamed are more prone to have, if you will, be so inflamed that they cause more sludging of the blood as it goes through, leading to clotting. So there you go. So foundation pack, the 12 bad foods, the diet, take a look at that, to what you should be intaking with the foods. And then you mentioned, Pete, selenium.
Yep, the ultimate selenium, and 1 extra bottle of Prohoba Omega a month. Now, if you really want to take it to the next level, you can also do something called the antioxidant response. It's a Good Herbs formula, Good Herbs antioxidant response. Because Good Herbs antioxidant response, the intention of that is to upregulate the fire department of your body so that your body can more efficiently deal with the fires of inflammation. So that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. Because ultimately, what all stress boils down to is heightened levels of inflammation somewhere in the body. And it would therefore make sense if you are in a stressful environment because of this or because of PSYOPs campaign to upregulate the fire department of your body so that it can deal with the ramifications of that stress would be inflammation somewhere. So the diet does that, the 90 essential nutrients does that, and specifically the antioxidant response helps the body to do that. 1 bottle a month, 2 milliliters twice a day. And
I'd like to add this in closing. When folks hear about stroke, they occasionally will hear about the mnemonic BFAST, B-E-F-A-S-T.
Yep.
The B stands for, so this is am I having a stroke, am I not? And this is very important that you have this at least in your mind's eye. B stands for balance. So if you develop a loss of balance or a dizziness, okay, that doesn't mean you are having a stroke, but it means up, up, up. But if you combine it with the others, the E being eyes, all immediate vision changes. F being face, the face starts to get some drooping, right? Arms is the A for weakness or immediate weakness or numbness. The S is for speech, trouble speaking or confusion. And the T is time. Time is of the essence, and that's when the 911 call occurs. One of the other misnomers I want to talk about, just mention, is many people believe you have to be 70, 80, 90 years of age to have a stroke.
Yeah. Negatory, Ghost Rider.
Right, and in fact, strokes can occur at any age. 20% of folks that have a stroke, this is up until the past couple of years, were less than 55 years of age. We are now seeing public service announcements produced by the government saying that children and young adults can have heart attacks, can have strokes. Why over the past year and a half has the government decided that that is a problem? I'll leave that to you because, of course, we have to be very careful about this. But something changed in the past year and a half for the government to now be coming out with these public service announcements in that regard. Many people have said that there are risk factors to having a stroke, as Pete mentioned. Blood vessel issues, high blood pressure, an arrhythmia, diabetes. But as we have pointed out in the past in this series, these issues can be nutritionally addressed so that they are not issues, right? And one of the other issues associated with stroke is smoking. Well, guess what? Cessation programs for smoking are very, very plentiful. And one of the other sides on this is people that do not get any physical activity. A very solvable problem. You don't have to go out for a run. You don't have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to go for a 20-mile bike ride. Walking can be quite the activity that can be very beneficial from a stress reduction standpoint, as well as an exercise all the muscles, including the heart muscle standpoint. Folks, for the final nail in that coffin, here's a medical myth worth busting. Exercise without nutrition. Oh, good one. Yes,
is stressful to the body.
It is
net negative stress on the body.
Right.
Exercise with nutrition.
Yes.
Superman.
So the way I'm going to lose weight, Pete, is I'm going to exercise like all get out, and I'm not going to eat a thing.
Yeah, you're going to die, sucker.
Yeah. So we're right. So nutritional support, while when you're going through these exercise regimens, is very, very important, as Pete points out.
Yeah, and this is what everybody in all major sports needs to know, and very few people do. Yeah, and the trainers that professional athletes have, they don't know this. Everybody's doing fractionated nutrition. Nobody knows. It's tragedy. I would guess that I could realistically eliminate 75% of ligament and joint injuries to professional sports people within 1 year if people just followed my advice. But I doubt very much this is ever going to enter into the mainstream because of too many factors available. I'll tell you this little story, and we can end with this because people like stories. This is a fun story. There was a professional athlete, he's a basketball player, very famous basketball player. And we developed a product that was a replacement for Gatorade. It was called Rebound FX. Mm-hmm. And we developed Rebound FX with another NBA player. His name was Theo Ratliff. And he led the league in rebounds for a number of years. Mm-hmm. He came back from an injury that they told him, the best orthopedic doctors in the NBA said, "You're done, Theo. You can't play with this amount of bone and joint damage. You can't do it." So he went on the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack in massive amounts because he was 300 pounds and 8 feet tall, whatever. But 9 months after they told him he was done, he came back and he led the league in rebounds for 3 years. And then what happened was he developed with the company a replacement for Gatorade because Gatorade doesn't have very much stuff in it at all. But so Rebound FX was like Gatorade on steroids. It was unbelievably effective. And a very famous basketball player who I've been told by legal that I can't mention his name. He would not go on the court without it, but they made him put it in a Gatorade bottle. Mm. And, that's how much lack of freedom we have in the free world here. Big business has its tentacles everywhere all of the time. So the moral to this story is what it all boils down to is nutrify your body on a regular basis. Stop eating food that's gumming up the works. And then give a little extracurricular support depending on what the stress is. And we've got that all lined up for you. And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
And full disclosure, there is more information at OperationFreedomHealth.com as well as drglidden.com. The products are available that we've discussed here today at OperationFreedomHealth.com. Full disclosure, purchase of the products on OperationFreedomHealth.com does support this platform. One of the other things Peter and I always mention is that it is important for you when you have your next doctor's appointment to discuss the issues that we've brought forward. Because, one, to get your doc's input, but I can tell you the vast majority of docs are going to look at you and go, I didn't know that. But it's important that you consult with your treating physician, and not just consult with your treating physician, but help educate your treating physician. That doesn't mean, I don't mean this in a negative way. Yeah. Right? Some of the biggest lessons I learned in my medical career came from my patients. Yeah. Right? So it's a two-way street. So we're providing you information to run by your doc, and if your doc is not familiar with it, help educate your doc. And again, we are available 24/7 at OperationFreedomHealth.com. Dr. Glidden is available 24/7 at drglidden.com as well. I thank you for joining us today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.